Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nerdgasm. I am not your regular host. The Black Lantern is on call, but I am not he. I am Caleb Coho here to host today's Nerdgasm event with Brooklyn and Cody on call. But the reason why I am main hosting is because the two people on the call tonight debating it out, Robert Parker and Malcolm Lay, and they put the salty one that lost to one of these guys in charge of main hosting. This is going to be a blast, but it's going to be great. These two are very strong debaters. And here to call the match with me, Brooklyn and Cody. Brooklyn, how you feel about this debate tonight?
I feel good with this debate. I do not feel good myself, as to why I'm not hosting. As the Boston people like to say, I got a wicked cough. Yeah, I'm actually excited for this. I'm curious to see what sort of Malcolm that we get. Do we get the calm, timid one that we usually get, or do we get the boisterous one, the loud one that we saw in a dance-off match against one Brian Fernandez?
Absolutely. There are two different kinds of Malcolms. Hopefully, the Malcolm that we've seen on Late Night will come through and win, or do well. Over to Mr. Newberry, who is also judging tonight. How do you feel about this debate tonight?
I feel like this debate will go better than the dinner I'm cooking right now. But on that note, there's a reason I don't play in Nerdgasm, because I feel like it would be the separation between me and Robert as friends. I feel like we would hate each other at the end of a fight, so that's why I don't play. But I think Robert is a very scary debater when he's passionate. I think that's the thing we've learned from the last match, because he's done movie Battleground before, and it's just never been like his favorite thing, or the questions don't fill out. But then we saw him in the last match and he wanted to like rip off your head. So but Malcolm has that thing of like the slow tactics that when he doesn't say a lot all the time, but what he says is really good at times. So it could come down to just less is more for Malcolm, and it's even won him a Nerdgasm match. So again, I can't say on camera who I think will win, but yeah, I'll leave it to that.
All right. Over to our players today, starting with Malcolm Goldie Lay. How do you feel about your competition tonight and your debate?
Well, this is essentially a rematch from a movie Battleground past, in which we did get a nerd category, which isn't in this match. But I'm nervous about one of the questions, but I'm pretty confident about the other two. So
that's very good. Over to our other debater, Robert Parker. Bad blood aside, how do you feel about this match today and your chances of winning this one?
Cody knocked it right on the head. When I'm passionate about something, I will fight tooth and nail for every single point that I can get. In Nerdgasm specifically, this is my realm. This is where I am passionate. Malcolm and I have debated before in Movie Battleground. It didn't work out his way the first time, but we'll see what happens this time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, let's get right into it with your round one question. From the world of Game of Thrones, who is the most hated character? All right. So, Malcolm, you will be going first on this question. You have 1 minute for your opening argument when you start talking.
Well, for me, the most hated Game of Thrones character I picked is Caleb Coe. Oh, sorry, I mean King Joffrey. But he's one of those ones that's so cruel. Like he ordered the murder of Ned Stark, and he's just so cruel and cowardice, but yet he still takes credit for various battles. And I'll get more into it in the debate.
All right, short and sweet. Over to Robert, 1 minute for your opening. Who's the most hated Game of Thrones character?
The clear answer is Ramsay Bolton, formerly Ramsay Snow. Ramsay is a character that not only is he like just cruel and like creepy, but he's sadistic. He does the despicable things, not just orders them. Ramsay is a character who has fed a newborn child to dogs, who has murdered his own father, who has raped an underage woman, who has cut off a man's penis and sent it to his family as a threat. Ramsay is a monster. Joffrey is not.
All right. Ending out just a little bit early as well. We have 5 minutes for freeform debate. Have at it.
All right. So Joffrey is a character who orders. other people to do bad things. Ramsay is a character who does bad things. Joffrey is pompous, he's arrogant, he's like rude, he's kind of a prick, but he was raised to be that way. He's a prince. He's the son of two of the most highborn families in all of Westeros, the Baratheons and the Lannisters. He was raised to be a pompous dickhead, and that's what he is. Ramsay was born into nothing as a bastard, the lowest thing that you can possibly be in Westeros, and he rose to power through his monstrosities that he committed himself.
Yeah, but in saying that, committing atrocities yourself doesn't necessarily mean that makes you most hated. Like, you can still respect a really dick person. I mean, there's still people out there that respect Donald Trump, but like, when it comes to ruling, like, if you rule with cruelty, like, everyone automatically hates the leaders of theirs. Like, just because you go around doing all this terrible
Game
stuff.
of Thrones as a show was almost canceled after Sansa's rape scene. Literally, the show was almost shut down because people were so angry. If that doesn't create most hated character, I don't know what does. Yes, Joffrey ordered the murder of Ned Stark, but that's what the show is built on. Game of Thrones is built on, if characters make mistakes, there are consequences. Ned Stark in season 1 made mistakes, and he paid for them. Joffrey was doing not good things, but he is not on the level of hatred, of monstrosity, of sadism that Ramsay is.
But yeah, like, still one of those ones that there's still nothing likable about Joffrey. Is like, when it comes to Ramsay, you can probably find people who do like him. Like,
there are definitely people who like Joffrey. I actually think there are a lot of people who credit that as a very, very good performance because it makes you just kind of feel uneasy. But Ramsay, that is a performance that makes you almost throw up. Not only that, but there are things that you can excuse about Joffrey. Like I said, he was raised to be a prince in King's Landing by two of the richest, most noble families in the entirety of the Seven Kingdoms. You can understand why he was raised to think he's above other people, because he does think he's above other people. He was raised that way. He was raised to be king. You can understand that. There were dozens and dozens of people who were raised to be king. Not only that, not only was he raised that way, he's also inbred, which messes with your mind even more. It's just more excuses to understand that character and understand why they're the way they are. It makes you hate them less because you kind of see how they got there. With Ramsay, there is none of that. He comes into the scene, or he comes onto the stage fully fledged, torturing Theon. He tortures somebody into forgetting their own identity. He literally changes the makeup of that person's mind into becoming Reek. There is nothing more hated than that.
Yes, but just because you're raised that way doesn't mean that you have to be that way. He could have chosen to go a different way. He could have chosen to be kind. But yet he still chose to still be a cruel. Like, there's nothing, like, with Ramsay, there's always a chance, like, he might do something nice. Like, you never know. It's like
there's much more of a chance that Joffrey will do something nice than Ramsay. Joffrey has people serving him. He also has good people whispering in his ear, telling him good things. He has Tyrion at his hand of the king at one point. He has his uncle Tywin as a hand of the king at one point. He has people like Varys talking to him. There are the Hound who betrays his orders. There are people who try to turn Joffrey to do good things. He has a support system there in King's Landing. Ramsay has none of that. Ramsay has his own father who only encouraged and fueled these terrible, terrible things and then paid for it by being murdered by his own son in cold blood while he stared him in the eyes. That's messed up. Ramsay is a sadistic, cruel, terrible, terrible monster of a character who almost got the show shut down. People literally cheered out loud when Sansa got her retribution against him. When Joffrey died, people were like, yay, like, he's gone. And then Ramsay came on, they're like, oh yeah, he's worse. Yep, he is worse.
Time. All right. All right, Robert, 45 seconds for your closing when you start talking.
Ramsey does terrible things. He does atrocities. He commits terrible crimes against humans, against animals. He has his stepmother eaten by wolves. He has a baby eaten by wolves. He rapes and pillages and murders and tortures. And he does that because he thinks it's fun. Joffrey orders people to do terrible things, but he's inbred and was raised to be a king. You can understand why there is that level of intolerance. Ramsey is a creature from hell that almost got the show shut down.
All right, ending 10 seconds early there. Malcolm, 45 seconds for your closing when you start talking.
Well, Ramsey is a sadistic son of a bitch, but King Joffrey, a lot of people shows that people in power tend to be more hated than people who actually commit the crimes. Like he orders a lot of things, like he backs him out of battles, but yet he still takes full credit and claims that he did it. I mean, King Joffrey is pretty much like Donald Trump. Like he's one of those people that was really hated and is in power. So, but Ramsey, he could easily have some redeemable qualities, but Joffrey is just really unlikable in every way.
All right, time. All right, I'm going to start with Brooklyn on your ruling.
So I could kind of tell right out of the gate, or just throughout the duration of the battle, that similar to myself, Malcolm, I probably hasn't watched a lot of Game of Thrones. That is absolutely just the way the debate went. Robert was pretty well in the driver's seat the entire time. Really sort of expanding out on his thoughts and just really giving you the detail on how Ramsey is this evil person. So quite confidently, I give my point to Robert.
All right, that's one for Robert. I'll go next. I will also be giving my point to Robert. I didn't really hear enough from Malcolm that really knocked down Robert's argument. Robert just kind of came out and just kept hitting. The biggest things I heard was that Joffrey orders people to do bad things, whereas Ramsey does the bad things. And then from Malcolm, I heard that Ramsey is maybe likable, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Robert. Cody, your point did not matter, but where would you have leaned and why?
On argument's sake, I go with Robert. On my own personal opinion, I also go with Robert because, for my pick, I would have picked Ramsay Bolton because as I'm rewatching this show right now, Joffrey's just a little bitch. Ramsay's a despicable human being that should never be on screen. Okay, bye.
All right, so after one round, Robert takes the first point, 1-0. All right, so the second question we have comes from the Wizarding World, and it was pitch a student if they were sorted into a different house. All right, so Robert, you'll be going first on this one. 1 minute for your opening argument whenever you start talking.
Okay, 4 pitch questions. You want to change something that will tweak enough to make the story different, but not too much as to ruin themes that were in the original material. So for that reason, I am going to change Luna Lovegood from a Ravenclaw to a Hufflepuff. First off, Luna already exhibits many Hufflepuff qualities. She's extremely loyal. She's extremely kind. She has a big heart full of lots of love for both friends and family. She is an incredibly caring person. And the other thing is the story lacks a central Hufflepuff character that lasts throughout the duration of the story. Cedric is there, but only to assist Harry's emotional journey, not actually to play a role in the plots of the movie. Whereas if you change Luna to Hufflepuff, you have a central Hufflepuff character, which you don't have otherwise. She doesn't really exhibit Ravenclaw qualities that often, and I really think the story could do with a better Hufflepuff character.
All right, time. Malcolm, 1 minute for your opening. Who would you put in a different house and why?
Well, I went a completely different with this pitch question. I'm going to pitch Harry Potter to Slytherin because the Sorting Hat himself said he'll do well in Slytherin. Whether was that was because of the Horcrux, or that we don't know. But the thing is, if Harry Potter was sorted in Slytherin, he could easily, it could help him a lot more because he could find out a lot more about the followers and Death Eaters in Chamber of Secrets. He could find out about the Chamber of Secrets really quickly by making a lot of Slytherin friends, and he changes the stigma that that only the evil wizards come out of Slytherin. I'll get more into this in my debate.
All right, stopping early. Harry to Slytherin or Luna to Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, right? No, I don't remember. To Hufflepuff. That's what I thought. Anyway, all right. 5 minutes for your free form whenever you start talking, guys.
I'm just going to start by saying if Harry was in Slytherin, he'd be murdered by the Basilisk because then he didn't pull the Sword of Gryffindor out of the hat. Not only that, but the thing is, if you change Harry to Slytherin, you ruin one of the central themes of this children's story. So the Harry Potter books, the movies, they began as children's literature to be storytelling to children, and part of storytelling to children is always teaching lessons. And the single most pivotal lesson in the entire Harry Potter franchise is the lesson of choice. That no matter the circumstances that you were born into, no matter what house you're sorted, whatever it is, you have a choice. Harry chose to be in Gryffindor because he wanted to. If you put him in Slytherin, you are ruining the literal theme, the crux of the storytelling is about choice. Two of the most iconic Harry Potter quotes of all time are about choice. Albus Dumbledore, it is not our abilities who show who we truly are, it is our choices. Sirius Black, it says, we both have light and dark inside of us. What matters is the side we choose to act on. By choosing Slytherin, Harry, your protagonist of the story, is choosing to act on the evil inside of him, and that makes him a less relatable of a character, and that changes the story for the worse.
Yes, but in saying that, like, they could still touch on that theme of choice, but if he was put in Slytherin, but they can take it in a different route, because I mean, there's no guarantee that that theme will be lost if he was in Slytherin.
You would, though, because that theme is initiated and is only spoken of when we're talking about Harry's sorting ceremony. Even in Chamber of Secrets, when he goes into Dumbledore's office and has a brief conversation with the Sorting Hat literally, Dumbledore asks him why the Sorting Hat chose to put him in Gryffindor, and Harry says, "Because I asked to, because I wanted to." That is so essential to Harry Potter's character. That is so essential to the Harry Potter story, and there is a guarantee that will not be there anymore if you move him to Slytherin.
Pause. Robert, you're getting real close to filibuster on this round. You gotta let Michael at least say something. Sorry. Okay, you're good. Whatever you need, Brooklyn.
But yeah, well, the choice element is there. It could be explored in different ways if he was on Slytherin. If you remove Luna from Ravenclaw, it completely takes out the fact that Harry finds the diadem is Luna that explain does talk to Ravenclaw, and that Rowena knows where and finds out where the crowd is, and it helps Harry get into the common room.
In Deathly Hallows Part 2, Luna's not the only one who talks about the diadem. Cho Chang does as well, and she's also a vital Ravenclaw character. You already have that. Not only that, but Cedric Diggory's death would be more important if Luna was in Hufflepuff, because then we talk about after Cedric's death, Cho just spends a lot of time crying alone. We could have a really heartfelt, female, empowering scene of Hufflepuff Luna, who has a connection to Cedric because of the house, and Cho as a Ravenclaw because she dated Cedric. They could be comforting each other. They could be with each other, grieving together. That makes that death in the series even more important.
Not really. The death sort of happened. It doesn't mean anything. That I don't think it would have worked that way personally, but it's one of those ones that if Harry was in Slytherin, like Snape might be nice to him, and he might actually open up to him more about telling him stories about his parents and stuff, and that, and he might open up more. But it's one of those ones like
one minute.
Yeah.
If Harry was in Slytherin, he'd spend his days at Hogwarts bullying Ron and Hermione and skipping class with Draco Malfoy. That's not a story I want to see. That's not a story of choice. That's not a story of heartfelt friendship. That's not what that is, and that's what Harry Potter is supposed to be.
There's, once again, his friendships with Ron and Hermione might not change. He met Ron and Hermione before the sorting ceremony. He may, like, his personality doesn't need to have changed, but just because he's a Slytherin, he could change the stigma that only the evil wizards come out of Slytherin.
The stigma is that only never mind. I'm not gonna read that.
But with Luna going into Hufflepuff, because Luna's the one that talked to Rowena and sort of convinces Harry to go. Like, Cho only knows about the lost item, but all she says is that it's lost. No one knows where it is.
Time. All right, time. All right, Malcolm, you have 45 seconds for your closing when you start talking.
I think a good change to the movies that could benefit the story of Harry Potter is if Harry Potter ended up in Slytherin. Well, yes, the choice element may be different, but he could find out information more if he was in Slytherin and be able to get into common rooms. Like, he might find out that it was Voldemort that opened the Chamber of Secrets ages ago quicker than the way he did if he was in Gryffindor. With Luna, it takes out the fact that Luna talks to Ravenclaw, because if Luna was never in Ravenclaw, then she would never have talked to the ghost of it, and Harry won't know to talk to her to find out where the diadem is.
Time. All right, Robert, 45 seconds for your closing when you start talking.
Luna is such a quirky character that no matter what house she was in, she'd probably end up talking to the ghost anyway, which kind of moots your point. She would still tell Harry to go talk to Helena Ravenclaw. They would still find the diadem. I still stand by my point. Harry would be murdered in the Chamber of Secrets if he was in Slytherin by Tom Riddle, and then Voldemort would rise to power and take over the world again, which is not what we want. We lose too many central themes of the story and central plot points of the story if Harry does not make the choice to be in Gryffindor. Changing Harry to anything just does not work. It changes too much of the story as far as the themes that are trying to be presented through the storytelling, and it just ruins too much. We need a stronger Hufflepuff character. That's what Luna can be.
All right, time. Cody, we're going to go to you first since your vote did not count last time. Where are you leaning and why?
This was a really tough argument. I think Robert talked a lot, but I mean, I called him out on it. I can't kind of point that to take points away from him. I just think he hit a lot hard. I think Malcolm got a little tongue-tied. I think he knew where he wanted to go. It just was presenting it. So I have to go with Robert on this one. I think Robert pointed out the picture of why that would be a good fit. Harry would change a lot. I wish I would have heard a little bit more from Malcolm, like with Harry going there, what he mentioned some, but I needed more for that iconic character, in my opinion. So that's how I handle pitch questions. So I give it to Robert.
All right, Brooklyn, where are you leaning and why after the Cody's ruling?
Fuck. This was a really good back and forth. I thought Robert got a little bit lost at the start. Like, he sort of went off on a little adventure, kind of rhyming off some different quotes and stuff that weren't essentially important to the thing. But then Robert did something really good. He brought up another point that he had in a freeform about how if Harry's a Slytherin, he never pulls up the sword and dies in Chamber of Secrets. And there was never really a defense brought up on that point, when that's sort of integral to the whole Harry Potter arc. I'm giving it to Robert. I think he really got it for me in the closing. But an incredible performance by both. I thought this was really close.
All right, so with that, Robert goes up 2-0 after that round. My vote didn't matter. I would have also leaned Robert. I just think Robert hit harder, and Malcolm never really defended some of those key points in Robert's argument. All right, so moving into the third prep round. This is a must-hit for Malcolm to stay in the game. Your third round question is in Disney animation, and it is, what is the best Disney villain post 2000? Post the year 2000. Malcolm, you will be going first. 1 minute for your opening when you start talking.
For me, the best villain post 2000 is King Candy from Wreck-It Ralph. He's definitely a very intimidating villain. Like, depending on where you go, like, he's also known as Turbo from a different game, but he's one of those ones which he manipulates all the characters into thinking that Vanellope is not a princess and that she's not the rightful heir to the throne. He tries to kill Vanellope by convincing everyone that she's just a glitch and doesn't belong in the game. So, I mean, it does a lot of very dark, villainous things for a kid's movie, and I think that makes him the better villain.
All right, stopping a little bit early there, Robert. 1 minute for your opening when you start talking.
In my opinion, the things that make the best villains are understanding their motivation and really getting a layered connection with the protagonist, and really just being a complex character in general. And the only Disney villain post-2000 that fits all of those criteria is the John Silver from Treasure Planet. This is a character that has layers. He is pulled by both the evil and the good inside of him, so you understand there's really a dichotomy in this character that is really fascinating to watch and load on screen. The design of this character is perfect. He's like a cyborg cook, and his arm can do a million different things, which is really memorable. His relationship with Jim Hawkins is astoundingly beautiful. You really get that he took Jim under his wing, and you get the sense of betrayal when Jim finds out that he's actually a villainous pirate. I'll get into more of it later, but Silver is a perfect villain.
All right. 5 minute freeform on who is the best Disney villain post 2000. Have at it.
The problem with John Silver is you picked the one villain from a very forgettable movie. The movie did not do well at all, but that's not the point of this argument. But he is very forgettable. Like, he's not even the best pirate villain Disney have done, and that comes in the live-action Pirates of the Caribbean that came the year after, overshadowing his performance. With King Candy, like, it may be the most recent choice, but it is also one of the ones that definitely shows villainous. Like, the thing about pirates is, like, yes, they're villainous, but they're also very conflicted as well. It's like,
he's not just a pirate, he's an adventurer. He's a person. You get the sense of his soul when he's doing like chores with Jim on the boat. He is a character that has layers. That's not something that King Candy has. King Candy or Turbo is one of a long line of Disney villains that is what I call evil and crazy for the sake of being evil and crazy because the movie needed a villain. If you were going to go for one of those, why didn't you go for like Dr. Facilier in Princess and the Frog, or Almeida Slim from Home on the Range, or Rourke from Atlantis the Lost Empire, or Yzma from Emperor's New Groove? Those are all villains that are in the same class as King Candy, but I think all outshine him. I think King Candy is a much more forgettable villain than John Silver. Just because it didn't do well in the box office doesn't mean that it's not a good film. There are multiple scenes where in Treasure Planet where you really get that sense of connection and you get the relatability. This is a character who has been after one thing his entire life, and he wants that more than anything. That desire is deep inside of his heart, and he like is then torn because he meets Jim, who's a kid that he really cares about. And that means something. As an audience, you like to see that kind of dichotomy, that kind of pull and tug in a villainous character. You don't get any of that in King Candy. He's just evil and crazy.
Yes, but while he may be evil and crazy, like, he's still a pure villain. Like, with John Silver, he's not really villain. Like, he does too much nice things to even be sort of in that villain class. Like,
he orders the murder of the captain on the ship.
Yes, but he only does that. He's once again, he's a pirate. He only does that to show the crew that he is the one in charge. With King Candy, like, he does it because he wants to he doesn't want anyone to survive. He would murder everyone if he could.
Both of these characters are motivated by greed. That is very, very clear. King Candy is greedy for the power that he has in Sugar Rush, or Turbo is greedy for the power he has in Sugar Rush, and as John Silver is greedy for the gold on Treasure Planet. Only one of these characters actually has layers to that motivation. Obviously, they both show greed. They obviously want something and desire it very, very deeply, but only one of them is actually conflicted, and only one of them is relatable. And that's John Silver. He's relatable. When we see him through the eyes of Jim Hawkins, Jim doesn't initially trust him. And we as the audience don't trust him either. And then we build that relationship. Just as the protagonist builds the relationship with the villain, we as the audience build that relationship with the villain. And that's not something we get with Turbo.
But the thing is, with villains, you don't want to relate to them. You don't want to see good in them.
You do, though. Black Panther is one of the best movies of all time because we see the relatability with the villain. That's the one thing everybody is praising.
For me, that's one of the biggest parts of Black Panther. You don't want to relate to the villains. It's one of those ones but as I said, Lord John Silver's not even the better pirate villain post 2000. Like Barbossa's clearly better.
Disney animation only. I defy you to tell me a better animated Disney pirate villain than John Silver, because I don't think there have been
there hasn't been any other pirate villain. So, apart from Captain Hook, who's probably better. But anyway,
that was the
50s. But still, it's like
So King Candy, again, I'm gonna say it was in the class of being
30
evil and crazy
seconds.
just because they needed a villain in the movie. And yes, he serves that purpose well. And yes, it's good voice acting, but he feels like filler just because they needed an antagonist to Vanellope. That's not what John Silver feels like. It feels like he was genuinely written into the story as a character, as an emotionally weighted character, and that's because of the source material of Treasure Island as well. You could have picked many, many Disney villains that are evil and crazy just to be evil and crazy. Mother Gothel's another one. There's lots that you could have gone for.
All right. All right, Robert, you have 45 seconds for your closing when you start talking.
Great Disney villains post-2000, as far as their animated films. There aren't a ton of them that are standout. Many of them are memorable. Not all of them are great. King Candy is one of the ones that I think of as okay, and his best parts come from the voice acting, not anything he does in the film, not any of the way that the character is written. John Silver is written to have a character with emotional stakes, and we as the audience, while watching that, really, really feel it. That's not something we get while watching Ralph and Vanellope contest with King Candy.
All right, stopping early. Malcolm, 45 seconds for your closing to wrap this one up.
John Silver is a very forgettable villain. Like, you try to remember him, he's one of those ones you just forget about, and doesn't do anything memorable. Like, you don't want to relate to villains and to see good in them. He shows at the end that he cares more about Jim and saves Jim at the end than opposed to grab the treasure. That's not really a villain move. With King Candy, there's nothing redeemable about him. Like, he's one of the villains that does meet the oncoming fate of actually dying at the end when he tried turning to the Cyborg and try and take over the arcade.
Time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start first. I'm going to give my point to Robert because I think Robert did a really good job of selling me on his villain, about the emotional complexity and why that character is more interesting than King Candy. Malcolm did a really, really respectable attempt at the end there to try and knock it down in the closing. I just think Robert had too much of a leeway in the free form to kind of gain that ground. All right, over to Brooklyn. Where are you leaning and why?
I actually disagree with you. I'm actually going to give my point to Malcolm. I think the way that the freeform sort of worked was like Robert had his jabs and whatnot, and it's sort of like Homer whenever he was boxing, like just took a bunch of hits, and then it was like then Malcolm, I think, had that one haymaker of how King Candy is more so a pure villain, and I think that's where he sort of took control of the freeform. So I'm actually going to give my point to Malcolm. I was a little more sold on his take on King Candy.
All right, which means, Cody, you are the tiebreaker. Where are you leaning and why?
Well, this may screw me on late night with take 3, but I have to give the edge to Robert. I think of his battle, as much as the haymaker that I believe that he is a true villain, I think that Robert presented an argument that was unique to what it was and literally tore down King Candy to a T with mentioning all the other villains similar to him. And the only thing I really mainly got the whole time, and it's nothing against him, it was just that he's forgettable. It's not a good enough movie, but that was not enough to really sell me. So I have to give it to Robert.
And your winner by knockout, Robert the Hobbit Parker. Wow, that was a good debate. What are your thoughts on that one, Brooklyn?
It was actually, it was quite close. I think this is sort of like it's like watching the Buffalo Bills in the NFL, where it's like technically they have all these losses and stuff, but I think they still have real good performances. Don't let the score of this match really affect Malcolm's performance. I think he did really well, with the exception of the Game of Thrones one. But yeah, I think this is once again another match to prove why Robert is scary. I don't want to take him on a debate in any way, shape, or form. So I'm curious to see who he ends up facing in the semifinal, whether that be Tim or Jay Burns. We honestly don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cody, what were your thoughts on this one, and how you feel this debate went?
This debate, I'm 100% with Brooklyn. I do not hold this against Malcolm whatsoever. It's kind of hard. We set up Nerdgasm to a way which I like, that you pick the strengths and you have to go and prep and do your homework. And I'm not expecting Malcolm to see 7 seasons of Game of Thrones. That's not what I'm asking. But like when you start down 0-1 and you go against Wizarding World, which both of them are super strong in, it's going to be they picked things that were, besides Game of Thrones, that were all in their wheelhouses, each other's wheelhouses. So Robert came out to ball. If something would have been picked earlier, like maybe Star Wars TV, that would have sunk Robert at that point, because Robert doesn't do TV a lot. But that's the strategy of our game, where you put things at what point. And I know why Malcolm put it at the end instead of the beginning, because if we got in the speed round, he'd have an edge in the speed round. But when that prep means the most, that's the secret of Nerdgasm. That's why you have to be prepped, and that's why you have to come in battling. And that's why I love this debate league that we've took over and revamped. I think it's a beautiful thing. Again, Malcolm will be back in regular season. I expect him to be moving back up the ranks, because I've had to debate him before, and that match against Dominic, it was proven fact. He was in his wheelhouse. He broke down categories to fit him, and he proved it and won. So this was no fluke, but Robert is terrifying, and I want to debate Robert so bad, but I feel like it will be a fracture of our friendship, so I will not do that. So, yeah.
All right. Robert, our winner today, how do you feel about your win, and who would you rather face, Tim or Jay Burns?
I feel good about this. I agree. The score did not show how close it truly was. I was very worried about back there when he pulled out the forgettable card. That hurt a little bit. And I agree with Cody. Had Star Wars TV come up in the speed round, probably would have been going to the last question. I'm proud of my performance today. I think I did very, very well in the Game of Thrones question. And is that Tim Smith and Jay Burns?
Tim Smith and Jay Burns, yes.
All right. I would rather face Tim Smith. And I think that is because both of them are good competitors. On paper, it's pretty close for both. But I think I have similar strengths against Tim Smith as he does. And because of that, I think I'll get more questions that I'm more passionate about.
All right, absolutely fair. Congratulations on your win. We'll see you in the semifinals. And over to our unfortunate loser today, Malcolm. You played a great game. The score definitely did not reflect how good you did. How do you feel about your game? And is there anyone you're looking to play when you come back in the regular season?
Yeah, no, I mean, despite the categories that came up, like I think I did well. I mean, I knew I was probably going to lose the Game of Thrones because in the time when I got the things, there was no way I was going to be able to get through all 7 seasons to get a good knowledge base of it. But yeah, as well those ones like in the categories that we could choose from, there really wasn't a lot that I liked. I put Wizarding World high up because that's probably the one that I really am passionate about. So it's one of those ones like for put that up there. I knew I could give Rob a good fight, but as for who I want to play, I'm happy with whoever comes my way. I mean, if it happens to be if I have to face you, Caleb, then let's do it.
Maybe it's up to the powers that be if you want another knockout. But you played great. We'll see you in the regular season, and maybe you'll play me, maybe you'll play someone else. We'll see what Brooklyn and Cody have cooked up. But yeah. Overall, this was a great debate, great match, and we have one of our semifinalists determined, and this is super exciting. So we'll throw it into the post-match plug, starting with our winner, Robert Parker. Where can they find you?
You can find me personally on Twitter and Letterboxd at RBRTPRKR98. That's my first and last name, no vowels plus a year. You can find me doing admin and hosting duties at Take 3 Productions, admin, hosting, and question running duties at Full Metal Trivia, specifically Full Metal Geek. You can find me as a Phantom Fight singles champion here at Multiplex Entertainment, the Full Metal Geek singles champion over at Full Metal Trivia, and hopefully the future Phantom Fights teams and Nerdgasm champion. 4 belts would be pretty cool. And of course, on the 2 podcasts I do every once in a while, one with Zach Ford called Fireside Chit Chat, and the other with Chance Ellison called Podcast Without a Cool Acronym, or PWCA.
All right, over to our unfortunate loser, Malcolm Lay. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Take 3 Productions, where I host Rankin every Sunday night. You can also find me competing in Full Metal and Multiplex. And you can also find me on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Stardust at Melkor.
All right, over to our host, one of our 2 commissioner hosts, Brooklyn Vale. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at TheRealBK10, the number not the word. You can also find me right here, or you can find me on Take 3 Productions, running not 1 but 2 shows, Jukebox Trivia, Music Trivia, Debate, and Countdown. Be sure to check out, as of recording this, February 4th, will be Cody Newberry versus Caleb Coho in a potential retirement match. Also, Thursdays, late night with Take 3, a Top Pop Culture podcast. Be sure to check out our returning episode, January 31st, which will be our Super Bowl episode with a potential guest. Hopefully, they were able to come on, but I understand if they don't. Also, right here on Multiplex, running Nerdgasm every Saturday, and you can find him on the after show, playing $1 million plus and talking about weird stuff.
Yep. Over to Cody Newberry. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Multiplex Entertainment helping Nerdgasm. You can find me on Take 3 Productions on 3 shows. Watch along with me, Robert, Malcolm, and Matt. You can find me on Thursday of Late Night with Take 3, also known as Brooklyn's a Dumbass, for 2.5 hours. You can find me on Sunday sometimes if the topic depends on it, not like dogs because I don't know what to say, but mostly people are wrong. You can find me as the Jukebox Dance-Off Champion over at Jukebox Trivia. You can find me as the Late Night Speed Round Debate Champion over on Late Night. And as of today, you may be able to call me the Movie Battleground Champion of the World, also the Manager of the Year, and Robert the Hobbit Parker backing him in every great thing he does.
All right. And as always, guys, you can find me, Caleb Coho, on Twitter and Instagram at Caleb Coho, Caleb with a K, and then KOHO. You can find me right here on Multiplex Entertainment. I host Phantom Fight on Fridays, and I'm always, here to hang out and help out Nerdgasm. You can also find me on the after show, which is a mess. But yep, from everyone here, that is Robert, that is Malcolm, that is Brooklyn, that is Cody, I am Caleb. And to steal a certain catchphrase on the panel, drive unsafely.
Drive safely.